Okay, that's just an example of what the solder joint should look like. Nice shiny silver. You can see the solder soaked all the way through the joint. I apologize if this is pretty elementary for somebody watching this video. I've kind of designed it for people that don't do this kind of thing. Anyway, what I'm going to do next is just wrap that with some electrical tape and plug it back in the socket. Okay, so at this point we've got the two lines from the thermocouple ran up into the cab, and I've got my orange wire for my dimmer switch and my ground wire run over to the corner of the cab. The only thing left is a source of key-on power. This particular truck, as you can see, is a stick shift and has two power outlets. This one's on all the time. I want key-on power, which would be the cigar lighter over here. So to get to that, basically you lift up these rubber cup holders. There's some nuts under there. You'll find some nuts that attach here, and you can remove this piece around the shift boot. I may actually disconnect the shift shaft. There's a rubber boot on the shifter there and a couple bolts, and you can take the shaft off the top of the transmission. And then there's a couple screws to remove this piece here, and a couple screws under here, I believe, that allow you to pop off the trim around the navigation system, and all basically this piece to get me access to the wires behind there. I also might note that I'm going to be installing a fuse, of course, but I'm going to put it up in the A-pillar, so that if the pyrometer were to quit, you know, a person wouldn't normally take the dash apart and look for a fuse. I want that somewhere accessible. And the wire that came with the kit is pretty thin. Of course, the cigarette lighter socket there is fused, but that wire that came with the kit is so small that if it shorted out, I think it would fry before it tripped the cigarette lighter fuse. So just going to run a little heavier red wire up to that fuse. Now we'll take a quick shot of these real quick. You can see the little tabs around the perimeter that hold it in. You can just grasp it and pull that out. Likewise, this has little tabs on the side. You can slip a little trim tool in there or whatever and squeeze the sides, or just pop that out. And down in here you can see that's exposed screws. There's one right there, I think, in that corner too. Okay, just a shot of this assembly. Those three screws and then a good tug. There's a couple spring clips on the back side of it here. And that leaves us looking like this. So we've got a couple more screws, and then this other plastic piece will come out. We'll actually pull the boot up. There it's also just spring clipped in, and this plastic piece has a notch in the front of it to slide it back around the shift housing. I might also mention, if you had a manual transfer case, this vehicle is equipped with an electric transfer case. There'd be another shift boot where that second little slot was, and you just pull that boot up and take the screws out. Okay, moving right along. Here's that centerpiece we just took out. You basically, let me in the frame here, reach up under here and you can release the little spring clips that hold the boot on, and then the boot will lift out of these front catches. And that leaves the interior looking like this, and that exposes bolts that hold this centerpiece on that'll finally get us to the screws that we're after. Okay, this is the next piece we took out. You can see it's retained by two screws. It also has catches on the sides and on the top. So you have to pull the two screws and then pull it down towards the floor and tip it out and lift it out. And that leaves us looking like this. And up under here are the two screws that we're going to get at next. Okay, a couple of screws there up from the bottom. Here you can see where they come through and into the instrument panel there on those see those tabs there. And then a bunch of, you can see the spots for the spring anchors, and that releases everything. And then here's the socket for the back of the cigarette lighter. And I'll do a little probing here and turn the power back on the truck just to make sure I've got the correct wire again so I don't mess anything up. And we'll tap that and tape the wire back along the main harness and over to where we need it. Okay, so here we are. We've got the little center bezel removed. Just undid all the connectors. They each have a little release tab. And I've probed with my meter and confirmed that this pink, yellow, and yellow tracer wire is hot with the key on, and stripped it back. And we'll see if we can get it hot there. And go ahead and solder that nicely. And from there then we'll just tape that up. I like to wrap tape on the wire I've soldered, covering the whole joint, and then hold it with the wire that's with that bundle. Okay, assembly is pretty much the reverse order of disassembly, putting that surround back in and the instrument surround, and popping that bottom panel on, and went ahead and fished all the wires up through here. The one going over to the cigar lighter I ended up zip tying, I think, to a control cable for the power pedals. Of course, you want to make sure everything's out of the way of anything where it can be pinched or chafed. I think I'll probably coil up all this extra blue wire under the dash with a zip tie, just in case some future owner or something decides they want the gauge somewhere else up above the visor or what have you. There'll be wire for that. So I think what I'll go ahead and do is clip these to a good length where there'll still be enough wire to remove the A-pillar easily or pull the gauge out, what have you. And to this red wire I'll be attaching my fuse holder with a 3-amp fuse. And the orange wire for the gauges, and on the other end of that fuse I'm going to go ahead and use a couple of bullet connectors. The reason being, if you ever have to take the HVAC box out that's under the passenger side of the dash, actually comes across the center of the dash, to change the heater core or the air conditioning condenser, you'll end up having to take the entire dash assembly out as an assembly, and it's nice to have things where you can disconnect them. Okay, we've got that cleaned up a little bit. Basically I've got a soldered and shrink wrapped connection from my key on power to my fuse holder. Everything taped together here. I've got a spade connector on the dimmer line and a butt connector on the key on power line so they can't get confused. And of course the ground. I didn't put a disconnect on it since if you take the dash out you'll run into where that's anchored. And then I've stripped back the wire for the two sensors there. And so now I just need to follow my directions as far as which wire goes which, and push them into the, hopefully it focuses that tight, the little prongs there, and push them home with this connector, and then I'll be ready to put my 10mm bolts on here and put this in there, and the A-pillar cover back on, and run the wires out, plug the gauge in, and we'll go from there. In the past I've always used a bracket to secure the gauge. Gino's directions suggested something I think I'll try, which is just wrap a bit of tape around the back of the gauge until you get a nice snug fit in holder there, and that way if you need to change the light or whatever, this one I think is LED and not disassemblable, or pull the fuse or whatever, you can just pull the gauge out of its holder. Hopefully we'll get this done quick. It's getting dark, cold, and getting ready to snow.